Redditors who have caught their so cheating on them without them catching on. How did you respond? She started by confessing that he kissed her while they were watching movies at his place. I voiced my assumption that she would stop hanging out with him after that, but she got mad and defensive and refused. When I look back, there's no question that's the moment my marriage ended. But I loved her, so we did the dance for a few weeks. She promised to stop talking to him, but started spending an awful lot of time going for drives. One night, she fell asleep in her car. Another night, she was at the airport having a Cinnabon at 3:30 am. The capstone came when she was out having dinner with her sister while I stayed home with the baby. I opened up her laptop to order a pizza and found her browser pointed to real estate websites. Oh lovely, they're shopping for a house together. How quaint. Well, time to put a stop to this. I called her sister. Hey, wife's phone battery must be dead. Can you hand her the phone? Pretty straightforward. And her response wasn't at all surprising. Huh, what do you mean? She's not here. Oh sorry, I must have mixed up my days. Have a good night. Click. So I called up my wife and made idle chat. How was dinner? How's sister? How's sister's boyfriend? Hope the traffic wasn't too bad. I let her lie to me for a couple minutes. When she asked what I was up to, I said me. Oh, I'm packing your things. I called your sister, and you're not there. It's time for you to come home. That was the second of 3 times I kicked her out before it finally stuck. Happily divorced 7 years. She was at the airport having a Cinnabon at 3:30 am. Literally the worst excuse I have ever heard of. WTF. My first marriage. Caught him via an obvious breadcrumb trail of late nights and long cell phone conversations seen on the bill. I responded by telling him I knew that I didn't want to hear any bull's excuses, and he was to end it immediately in one last phone call to her or we were done. 8 years married at that point. I gave him 6 months and he still hadn't put her away, so I hit the lawyer and Jim it up. Honestly, I was a little relieved to have an excuse to leave him. Our daughter says he still talks about how much he regrets losing me. He's been remarried 5 years. What an butthole. After confirming my suspicion, I put his phone back in his bag, woke him up, asked him where he was last night and he straight up told me the truth by saying, with her. I told him to get up, get his crap, and get out, and so he did. That was simple. I'd been suspicious for months but put it out of my head because the homewrecker was a supposed close friend of mine. Went on right under my nose both before and after our wedding. She snuck off during my bachelorette party to hook up with him. Finally I just read his texts and it was all laid out right there like a crappy romance novel. Confronted him and he was pretty nasty to me, as if he had any right, but I wanted to keep my hands clean during the whole ordeal so I kept it short and civilized. Like you Bobroland said, the only revenge is living well. The divorce was smooth after a whopping month of being married, and now I'm happier than I've ever been. You're a better woman than I. If I confronted someone for cheating on me with my good friend, going so far as to frick her at my bachelorette party, and he had the nerve to be nasty about it, I'm not a violent person, but I can't see myself not hitting him or at least verbally abusing him. I drove off, went to where they both worked, since I had left my car there earlier that day. Saw them making out in her car. All I could do was stare for a few seconds and had to will myself to just leave. It was the moment I knew I lost her for good. We haven't talked since. It's been 3 months. All the best to you, interfriend. I sat him down and told him we needed to have a discussion about trust and honesty. That we needed to be open to each other for the sake of our relationship. I told him that if there was anything he wanted to tell me, he could do it now and I wouldn't be angry. He confessed to cheating and then showed me the texts he sent her about how he never wanted it to happen again and how he'd rather cut all contact with her for the sake of his relationship. I appreciated it, and we worked out our relationship after that. I think being rational and calm about it all made it alright. My wife asked me to walk her mom through some computer stuff and handed me her phone. Heard the text message alert hit before we hung up and casually checked it when I got off the phone with her mom. Message said, "So, you love me now." It was from her boss. I went mentally numb, didn't mention it right away and waited for her to fall asleep. Got her phone, tried to open it, and surprised there was a lock code. I woke her up and asked her for her lock code, told her my phone had died and I wanted to play a game we were both playing. She immediately wakes up and starts in on how she knew I was going to do this and starts telling me how paranoid I am. She nuts out on me and calls her mom to let her know I am a lunatic and accusing her of all kinds of things, which I have not done yet, but now I'm pretty sure what's up. I tell her to go ahead and prove that I am crazy and put in her lock code and see who is the lunatic or who the cheater is. She puts the code in and several more messages from the boss pop in. Turns out she was the cheater after all. There were signs but I tricked myself into ignoring them earlier. I left that night and never even thought about going back. My wife left a few months ago. In hindsight, I think she was having an online affair with an old boyfriend that she decided to turn into a real relationship. I guess I didn't really do anything directly in response. She was gone by the time I admitted to myself what was going on. But recognizing what was going on helped me move from I'm a horrible husband who wrecked my marriage to she was a horrible wife who walked away from a good marriage as soon as times got tough, and it's helping me feel not the slightest bit of guilt as I fight to protect myself during the divorce proceedings. I was always the wage earner, and she made her bed. Truth to be told, I put a lot more into the marriage than I ever got back from it, so good riddance. You don't need that in your life. Find someone who actually appreciates you. After a year or more of suspicion and shady behavior, his ruse was blown when a friend of mine who also knew the other woman, she was hearing both sides and deduced we were talking about the same dude, arranged for both of us to meet at her house, explain our stories and figure out he was playing us. I ended up calling him and telling him I was standing there in the same room W's. He hung up on me. It's been done ever since and caused a lot of heartache for both us. It took me a while to heal from that. Posting from the perspective of the oblivious guy, but she turned up at my house. Really unusual as she lived half an hour away on foot and couldn't drive, seemed kinda quiet, and asked me if I wanted to go for a walk. I agreed, and we ended up sat on a wall about half a mile away. Conversation was completely normal, but she sounded a little off, so I asked her what was wrong. Nothing, just a bit of a bad day. Come here, she said, drawing me in close. She ran her hand through my hair, then down to my jaw and crack. She slapped me so hard I fell backwards off the wall. Can't say I didn't deserve it. Then her best friend popped out from behind a nearby tree and started the yelling portion of the episode. Fun fact, to this day, 8 years later, I am phobic of having my face held. It makes me instinctively wince. You are in butthole. However, in this moment I want to thank you for sharing this with us. No witty comment here, just stopped by to say sorry about your luck. Finding a so cheating on you, while painful in the short term, may be better in the long term. Instead of deceit you get truth. Got home from work early, spouse in bed with 2 large women, son sleeping close by, locked eyes, saw the $$ and $sign look, picked up my son and his bag, grabbed the clothing on the floor and went to my mom's. I have no idea what they wore home, but nothing of mine was going to cover the tonnage. It's probably not the same scenario you were looking for, but my ex-GF accidentally confessed to cheating on me 3 years after she dumped me. I got all sorts of reasons why she wanted to end our multi-year relationship. She just left out that she was fricking someone else. By this time, that same guy was her fiance. So here's what I did. I sent her an email. The exchange went like this. Me, is it okay for me to email you here? Her, wow, hi, yes this is good. Are you okay? Me, well, not really. Based on your Facebook post, can you explain how your anniversary with, name redacted, is in January when you dumped me out of the blue on the 6th of February? Her, that's not really our anniversary, but we're both so busy. I didn't start dating him until shortly after our relationship was over. He's not the reason why our relationship ended. I miss having you as a friend more than you'll ever know. I waited a few weeks, then forwarded the entire email exchange to her fiance. Let him figure out why that wasn't their real anniversary, why he wasn't the reason we broke up, and why she misses having me as a friend more than I'll ever know. I bet it was more than he knew too. I miss having you as a friend more than you'll ever know. Rolls eyes. Glad you're done with her. Oh man, my first Reddit story. Late to the party, but I really want to share this. So my BF and I had been together about 2 years. Great relationship, no problems. This was my first real relationship, so I was in heaven. I was at college out of town for about 2 months when I went home to visit. I was planning on going to my BF's house that evening. A friend offered to give me a ride there. On the way she pulled into a parking lot and broke down crying. She had something awful to tell me. She was dating his neighbor friend at the time and had overheard my BF saying he was getting it on with a girl from his work and how cool it was to get a BJ by a girl with a tongue ring. I was devastated, but heck hath no fury like a woman scorned. Got to his place. He wasn't home yet. She went to her BF's house and clearly let them know I knew as they all gathered on the front porch with beers waiting for a showdown. I should say this was before cell phones were common, so he had no way of being warned. He gets home and runs to me swinging me around all lovey-dovey. Very romantic style. I feign happiness. We sit on the porch a few minutes and I begin to give signs that I was really ready to show some affection. We head to the bedroom. Things start heating up. I slowly undress him, taking my time. I get on my knees, grab his little buddy. I look up with my bedroom eyes and whispered in a devil voice, should I get a tongue ring since that's what you really like? The look of pure fear will be forever etched in my brain. I wish I could say I did something bad as he was still in my hand at the time, but really it just was a massive, explosive verbal fight after that. Of course, I was fully clothed and he was, anxiously, naked the entire time. Found the Plan B receipt and moved the frick out while she sat on the couch threatening to kill herself. That's why my guns went into the safe, along with some antiques I'd inherited, just in case. Turned out to be unnecessary, but you never know. Can't stop them, but you dang sure aren't using my weapons. Throw away for obvious reasons. My boyfriend and I had been together for a couple of years before I found out. He was a lot more careful hiding it from me at first than he was later on, though. I knew before we were together that he had had a couple of threesomes with his best friend and his best friend's wife. What I didn't know was that after it got awkward, he and the wife would get together while his best friend was at work, and I was at work, when my BF and I were together. I eventually found out one night while he was sleeping beside me, because he left his Facebook logged in on my computer, and I didn't even notice it until a message from her popped up. It was a response to a message he had sent to her telling her how much he was in love with her, and how he had brought a pair of her panties in his suitcase on a vacation he had just returned from with his parents. She was wondering when they could meet up again. I was completely destroyed. I ran to the bathroom and threw up, and shook for the rest of the night. I couldn't sleep. I'm shaking now as I type this, remembering, and have tears in my eyes. I couldn't get over the betrayal. This is someone I planned to spend the rest of my life with. We lived together and were talking about getting married soon. I scrolled through some of the previous messages, and the two of them had been messaging each other a lot. I alluded to the message the next day, without letting on that I knew, and he denied everything. I let it stew. He left his Facebook logged in on my computer several times in the months that followed, and there weren't as many messages for the following few months, but then they started up again. It was absolutely devastating. Anytime I would confront him about it, which got more direct, his response was pure denial, and would turn it around on me somehow, even though I hadn't done anything. Eventually I couldn't take the deceit any longer, and ended up leaving him. I felt like the situation was killing me. I was a wreck. I was getting further and further into drugs to numb myself from it, and my depression was getting exacerbated by it. The whole situation killed my self-esteem for a very long time. I am still in love with him, and I always will be. I know how stupid that sounds, but you sometimes really can't help who you're in love with. He actually didn't see anyone after we broke up, until he died almost a year later. I constantly think about how I wish things had gone differently and long for the life we were trying to build together. I didn't really catch her cheating, but all of the signs were there. Before she graduated college, she was hired at a doctor's office as an assistant and would work late hours. I kind of expected this because I knew that medical professions consume a lot of time. I started to notice that she would spend more and more time at work, which started to get suspicious. After about 4-5 months into her being hired, I knew something was up. She would go to work at 6 AM, then not come home until midnight some nights, saying I had to drop medications off at patients' houses or I went to the 9:30 workout class, both of which didn't make sense because I called her co-worker and asked when the office closed, 7 o'clock, and when the emergency staff started, 9 o'clock, and if she was part of that staff, which she was not. Second, I went to the same gym and the latest class they had was 7:45 p.m. The second sign was how distant she had become in the relationship and protective of her phone. Normally she wouldn't mind showing me pictures or texts on her phone, but she increasingly became overprotective. She would also refuse to sleep in my bed. She was one of my roommates at the time. After we both graduated, I finally decided enough was enough and it was time to confront her. She denied it, of course, but at that point in the relationship I didn't feel a connection with her anymore and our love was dead. The night before I broke up with her, my roommates, including her and some of her friends, some of them dudes, all went out for drinks. Everyone got completely wasted and we were all a big mess. What I remember from that night is wondering where my ex-GF went and where one of her guy friends went. Well, as it turns out, she was feeling sick and had to leave the bar. Thankfully her guy friend was there to take care of her. When everyone decided to leave, one of my more sober friends got everyone together but couldn't find my ex-GF and said guy friend. We started a search party and eventually found them with her head in his lap. Now I barely remember this, but my friend said she wasn't going to town on him but resting her head on his lap. He could have been telling me the truth or just trying to avoid a fight from breaking out. Regardless, I broke up with her the next day. Went home instead of work. Gathered all the clothes I really liked, my consoles, and anything I could think of that wouldn't be missed. When she went to work that night, I grabbed all the things that would be missed, including myself, and left. I went over to her house and had a final evening of drinks and freaking. Then when she was asleep, I pee on her and her bed, then left. That's tight. I left the B, which is exactly what she wanted. I was working as a security escort for a private investigator at the time that I began to suspect my ex of cheating, so it was easy to find out for sure. One tapped home phone later, legal in AZ. I owned the phone and I knew much more than I wanted to. The worst part was that she was taking my 4-5 years old son with her to her rendezvous. I kept recordings, followed her occasionally. Then, one night when she said that she was going to her sister's, but had actually called her sister and asked her to call and hang up after my ex answered. To stage an alibi, I had both calls recorded. I packed all of my stuff into a camp trailer and left, leaving a half-empty, accidentally spilt box of ammunition on the counter along with a copy of some of the taped calls. Hired a great attorney, lost our home, had a heck of a time of it, but got custody of our son. She moved in with her boyfriend, who spent years terrified that her old man is going to kill him. He was abusive and she became a mentally unstable alcoholic. She has had 2 more kids that her mother is raising. I think he might be dead. I remarried to an amazing woman. She raised my kids as her own, and I raised her son as mine. Never any of that step crap. Just extra mums and dads, and we have a beautiful daughter together. Hers, mine, and ours for over 15 years now. Frick yeah, that's a bad butt story. I didn't do anything. It's a pretty bland answer, but there were a lot of reasons for my inaction that seemed to make sense at the time. The main reason was because I was so afraid to lose him. I thought if I just tried to make myself better, he wouldn't need to cheat on me with not 1, not 2, but 3 other girls. I was delusional, young, and dating someone who was not emotionally or mentally stable, which I only found out because of his mother. At the end of our 3-year relationship, he told me via text we needed to go on a break and ended up dating one of those 3 girls officially about 2 weeks later. I am glad to say I am now in a very loving and stable relationship. Sadly, I cannot say the same of him. I learned about it from his brother. He was from another country, and I was in the US at the time. I'm a dual EU citizen. We had been childhood friends and were going to get married in a few years when we both finished college. He claimed he cheated because I had gained weight and wasn't as beautiful anymore, plus I was all the way overseas, so he wasn't physically attracted to me and thus messed around with other girls. So I pawned off my engagement ring, which ended up being worth a lot. I bought 2 tickets to Puerto Rico and went with my best friend. I sent him pictures of the entire vacation. including one of me kissing a hot Puerto Rican guy with the caption "they think I'm drop dead gorgeous" and a video of us partying on some dude's yacht and popping crystal champagne. Yeah. Asked him while we were in the car. He admitted to the bare minimum that he thought I knew. We pulled into a parking space at a local pond. The argument progressed pretty quickly. Ended up with him throwing up in the parking lot while I was just sitting there after having kinda gone blank. Emotional overload, you know? Here's the thing. I can now see how he had effectively emotionally wrecked me prior to this. I had no freaking clue at the time. He had manipulated me to be entirely emotionally dependent on him. We made amends-ish. I stayed. Then I went to visit my sister for a weekend. Through a combination of crap cell service while I was on the trains, and not wanting to wreck a nice visit, I wasn't really paying much attention to my phone. I got home to find that he had taken my time in the city as a signal that he could frick the heck out of the chick. So I left. I left so hard. I quit my job. I had luckily moved towns too. I dropped all my friends. Mutual friends. All of them thought I was overreacting and that I was being crappy for getting pee at the chick, who had, up until then, been my best workmate. I did a crap job on the phone thing, so while I was in the city he was blowing the ever-loving frick up out of my phone. I eventually turned it off because, hey, I gotta sleep sometime. I would only turn it on once every couple hours so that I could keep contact with my sister and friends in the city. Despite an unnecessary number of texts from me saying I'm in the city, I'll be back on Tuesday, my ex assumed that I was actually planning on moving to the city and that I was never coming back and that I was just breaking up with him without telling him. Told that I knew, got an answer, packed my things, was gone in a day, drank the crap out of myself, found another in a 3-4 month. Young girls are dangerous. Young girls are dangerous. FTFY. It kind of came out in casual conversation with a friend that his friend was dating my girlfriend. He didn't know, so I didn't really fill him in. We hadn't been dating very long, so I just quit calling, returning her calls, and it worked itself out eventually. I started dating someone else within a few weeks, so I didn't really care. I'm actually kind of surprised of the lack of conflicts or fights with the person you're so was cheating with. Hearing it actually is common. Seems to be less common than people think. Most things are plots, leaving and divorce, not any fights. But that's better. I told the girl he was cheating on every time he came back to me over the space of 5 months. She knew it was happening, and is still with him. He cheated for a year. Similar situation here. I suspected that my BF of 4 years was cheating on me when he suddenly had a lock on his phone. We were always very open with one another and would use each other's devices all the time, so it gave me some bad vibes. He went out clubbing one night with a bunch of people and I just had a feeling that something was up. My roommate sent me a picture at about 1 AM of him with his tongue down a friend's throat. He messaged me at about 4 to say goodnight and I told him I was coming over in the morning. Promptly dumped him, and when he tried to deny it, I produced the pictures. He had given me an email password to keep tabs on some of his business while he was out of the country. So it's not like I was snooping. He was ignorant enough to use that same email to set up trysts. I tried to talk him into telling me the truth. I even said maybe we should just be friends while you're over there and I'm over here. He refused, both in spilling the obvious beans as to what was going on and in breaking up with me. In fact, he proposed. I did not cheat, even though I feel like him keeping me in a relationship was to keep me from other people. We broke up the day he returned from his trip. I didn't tell him how I knew, but he married one of the girls he was screwing behind my back. Turns out I was the other girl. But kind of fun story. In high school I had been seeing a guy for about 3 months and was completely head over heels when an acquaintance told me that he had a girlfriend named Kate. I was dumbfounded and flat out confronted him about it. He told me it wasn't true at all, that he had a friend named Kate, but not a girlfriend, etc, etc. I wanted pretty badly to believe him, but wasn't entirely convinced. Fast forward to a week later, I popped by a friend's locker and realized that same Kate's was right next to it. So, I recruited the friend to text me the next time the boy showed up. I conveniently made myself appear, and then had my friend ask her, in front of me, "You guys are the cutest couple ever." How long have been boyfriend girlfriend? The sheer look of terror on his face when she responded. 4 months. Pretty anticlimactic after that. He tried to apologize. I just never spoke to him again. It was twice, but she kept crying and saying how much she loved me. Dumped that B on her birthday wasn't intentional, and I actually forgot. Got high and fricked her best friend who got new nipple piercings, then proceeded to watch MXC and eat grilled cheese with her. Turned the tables and I was sent to the hospital for attempted suicide. Relationships are tough. I cheated on. When my ex cheated on me, I didn't know for a while. Eventually a friend of mine confronted me about a conversation that went down among some friends while I was stationed in Connecticut. Went something along the lines of, hey, is Dottie and still dating B? Yeah, but I don't know why she's been banging another dude for a month or so now and they are very obvious about it. So after that tip I told my buddy to be my PI. A week or so of me and her talking like everything was fine. I never confronted her or anything. He sent me a picture of them making out in the car and at that point I called her, asked how everything was. When she responded with, yeah, I'm great, I'm having a great day, so my natural response was, well, my day's about to be great. We are over. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't email me. Don't look at me when I get leave to come home. We are done. And you only wish you knew why. She was silent for a few seconds, so I hung up. Apparently she still doesn't know why, and her new man got her pregnant as well as another girl. So she got hit with karma. She got fisted by karma. So picture this. My so gave me the extra key to their apartment just cause we have been dating so long. Figured it was the next step. I went home to surprise them one day and picture this. They were both butt naked banging on the bathroom floor. Caught them going from the sofa to the counter and the shower. I even pulled out my phone and got it on camera for a bit. I knew something was going on with this chick he worked with. I could feel it in my gut. As time went on, I just figured it was my mind messing with me. Over a year later, as I'm cleaning my ex-bf's room, I find what looks like a high school note and pictures tucked into a jar that was in a weird spot in his closet. I was actually not snooping, if you can believe that. It was from the same girl, and my heart dropped as I read it. It confirmed that they fricked at least once and was emotional as well. It wasn't just fricking that we had, is the one line I'll never forget. The pictures were of her, of course. Since they still work together, I hopped into my car and sped off, walked right on back to his area, and started reading the letter out loud. Conveniently, the girl was there too. She turned bright red. My ex tried to take the letter from my hands. That's when I blew up. It wasn't pretty. I threw it at him once I got past the good parts. Told him he's an idiot for keeping that crap around. He's a freaking coward, and he can't go be with her if that's what he wants. Then I approached the girl, who was turned away from me. I asked her to look me in my freaking face. I at least deserve that. I told her she's too young to know any better and that she can have him. It turns out when I first felt off about them, that's when it started. The first time they did it was at my parents' house when we were on vacation. He'd lie and say he was running late at work, when really he would drive her home and get it in before he came home to me. It went on for about a year. I marched back out to my car and cried forever. We were together for over 2 years at that point. We had a lot of back and forth over the next few years, which doesn't make sense, I know. But I met my now husband shortly after officially ending things with my ex. And if I had to go through his crap to get to what I have now, I'd do it all over again. Living good, being content with your own life, is the best revenge. I don't know what he's up to now, and I don't really care. I didn't hear about it until after she had already left. Not divorced, just separated. I heard about it through the grapevine from reliable sources. At that point, I was so happy for her just to be gone. I did not care. We were not speaking anyway and have not since. Actually kind of a fun story, maybe not. My dad had a suspicion that his wife, my stepmother, and not the good kind, was getting it on with some other dude. He probably had the same suspicions a lot of other people did it. The fun bit is that he actually had the kids rig up the computer with keyloggers, reporters, etc., which caught a lot of the action in glorious hidden text files. Yay for technologically savvy teenagers. My brothers reported it to him immediately, with some glee. It was finally over. The end result was the kids and the neighborhood kids having a hilarious session reading over her steamy chats with the other guy. Dad wasn't as happy, but she was a B, and everyone knew it, so it goes. Then they actually stayed together for a while, until she finally gave up and moved out, and the house got foreclosed, and I had to move out. My brother had friends to stay with, and my other brother lived with our mom. So yeah, that was a fun event. I developed major trust issues with my ex-girlfriend over the period of 4 months back in 2012. I had acquired a job that had me work opposite hours than she did, so although we lived together we only saw each other awake twice a week. She became very distant and started doing little things to represent it, even going as far to build what was almost like a fort of pillows around herself in our bed to prevent us from touching while we slept. That was the catalyst to my research. So I went through her phone and saw some pretty revealing text messages. I decided that I would bring it up to her when we were both awake and could talk about it. On the day I was going to do that, I overheard her telling her best friend all about it, who he was, how long, and what her plans were with it. The entire time I knew she acted as if I was totally oblivious, and when I brought it up to her that day she said, "I want you to know this has nothing to do with him," but I was already done. I left, and 6 months later they got married. Way happier now than I ever was with her though, so I should kind of feel grateful. We got together end of high school, decided to go to the same college, everything was pretty set, you know, we were happy, won't deny that. When we were both on our 3rd year in the uni though, rumors started that he was cheating on me with a common friend of ours. I dismissed that fact since I was thinking I knew him better. We slept in the same bed every night, saw each other in between classes. There simply was no time for him to cheat. Plus, I also trusted the common friend. Anyway, the rumors died down eventually. After about a month, a very close friend suddenly took me aside and told me not to freak out because she heard that my boyfriend and our friend have been a couple for about 3 months already. Apparently the girl has been telling some of our other friends. I first confronted all of them asking if it was true. That's when everything came out. Apparently that wasn't the first time he cheated on me. I found out he fooled around with lots of girls. Most I knew personally, some I just heard about in passing. I felt so humiliated. I was so mad I wanted to literally kill him. My friends all said sorry. They said they didn't want us to break up because we seemed so happy. I had crappy friends. I was mad at everyone. I was even more mad at myself for not feeling anything. I trusted him too much. I guess there was time to cheat. Now that I think about it, there will always be time to cheat. Within an hour of knowing, I packed up all my crap before even talking to him. When we finally talked, my friends were crowded outside our flat. I tried my best to be calm, but of course a shouting match ensued. He didn't deny everything. Didn't tell me why he cheated. Most of all, didn't even tell me he was sorry. That's when all the crap went down. I stormed out of our place with my things, went to a friend's place. She wasn't part of the group who knew, went into my blog and wrote about him and all of the girls. Wanted to humiliate him and the girls because frick them, they knew we were together. Not exactly proud of what I did, but I still don't regret it. We broke up, obviously. After that I never spoke about the incident until now. That was 8 years ago. I guess it helped that I was so mad. I moved on quite fast. I could have forgiven him if he'd been half as honest as I was. But then again, that might have been another mistake, cause I know I won't be able to shake off the thought that he might cheat again. I'm not saying what I did was right, but for me it was. I've been very trusting, very loyal. I didn't deserve what he did to me. For me, there's no excuse for cheating. Because frick it, if the guy wants another girl, just fricking end things first before starting something else. TLDR. Blogged about cheating BF and his selection of girls, most of them my friends. It was one of the worst days of my life. I came home and heard sort of a grunting noise coming from the bathroom. His boxers were outside the door. The door was slightly ajar, so I walked up slowly. I didn't want to, but I really had to know what was going on. That's when I saw her. She looked like a superhuman. Better than a regular woman. More of a palm with 5 fingers attached, furiously massaging his manhood. I crept away silently in shame and never mentioned it. My high school GF. She told me that she had slept with someone else. She wouldn't tell me who, but wrote it down on a piece of paper and said, "Read it when I go." She came back an hour later and got me drunk while I sobbed. Then we started freaking. Then she put her finger up my butt. First time. Then when I'm getting close to orgasm she whispers in my ear, "You know when I left your house, I went to Mike's and had fricked him, finger, still, in, my, at $. Oh face crying. That happened. Frick cheating is so common. I'm freaking terrified of this. Can't be burned if you never cook. On the other hand, you'll never enjoy a warm meal. Be a good person and life will usually take care of you. The guy I dated for 2.5 years in and right after high school asked another girl out early in our relationship, but then took it back. Like an idiot, I didn't end it over that. Fast forward to our second year of dating. He started acting really shady and weird. We had a mutual friend who had a younger sister, and he would hang out with the two of them a lot. At the time, he was living with my mom and I, and he would get the friends to pick him up from our house. But at the end of our long gravel driveway, he said the friend was worried the driveway would mess up his car. He also kept leaving smelling like cologne. I snooped around on MySpace and discovered that the girl had blocked me. Convenient. So, I went on a new account, and I could see her page and the post she made to his. From this, I knew that they were together and had been for a while. Then, on Valentine's Day, I told him that I knew. He admitted it, and brushed it off like it was nothing and that I shouldn't be mad. I was pretty upset and cursed him out. I had given him a cool stone ring as an anniversary present, and he told me he had never truly loved me and tossed it on the ground. Not really my best Valentine's Day, but I got rid of that loser and went to a good university after that, where I met my current boyfriend. TLDR. Teenage drama. Let me start by how I caught her because it's kind of humorous. My GF at the time told my best friend's wife and eventually it made it to me as rumor. Here's where it gets interesting. I knew the guy very well so I went and found him later that day. I said to him that my GF had already broke down and told me but wouldn't tell me certain details. He begins to pour out details the whole time as I'm asking questions getting ammo for the confrontation. He really wasn't too bright. No, I didn't fight him. The sucker was almost family and he was married so I'll let his wife take care of him. She did. Black eye. Don't mess with a Latina woman. Anyways, I return home and ask my GF if there is anything she needs to tell me. Of course she has no idea what I'm talking about. I just say the guy's name holding back the good stuff and she still continues to lie to me. Then I grab a family picture of ours, stomp on it and mention the name of the hotel. Her face goes white. She immediately starts backpedaling and crying, giving me the "you work too much" sob story. I mean, come on, we had a toddler and I was freshly promoted manager sent to a sinking retail store to save it. How dare she try and blame it on me? But in the end we tried to make things work since neither of us had a dad growing up. It was very fun calling her out knowing everything and watching her deny it though. TLDR. Convinced GF's cheating partner to spill everything, then let her fall into a web of lies during confrontation. I noticed things were strange and he would always ask to buy me lunch or dinner after particularly shady nights. He never pays when we go out. I began putting 2 and 2 together, especially when I noticed the last condom missing. So, I'm actually the cheater in this situation. This is just from my point of view. His might be different. I was 16. He was 18. I cheated on him with his best friend. We had been dating for a few months and the whole reason why I started to feel wrong about the relationship was that he was more physical than I was comfortable with. We argued a lot too and I had generally always confided in our mutual friend, his best friend. This was before I actually did any of the cheating, but I told my boyfriend how I felt about the relationship, which was negative, and he completely freaked out. Late night sobbing on the phone, telling me how he was going to kill himself if I left. I freaked out. I had no idea how to handle this situation, and I didn't leave him. All the while I was getting closer and closer to his best friend. And I cheated. I was completely invested in his friend and I backed away as much as I could from our relationship. I pledged my allegiance to the enemy flag. Fast forward to when he found out. It was just a matter of when, not if, of course. But his friend mentioned me to him, and it all clicked together. He reacted pretty much by calling me a W, telling everyone he knew about it. and generally just saying anything he could to make me into a monster. His friend understood after I explained my situation, and we dated for a while longer, and we're still very close. Fast forward a year after that, I had found a new boyfriend, who unfortunately also knew my ex, and literally the phone call right before I was going to mention it to my almost official boyfriend, as he was a friend of my ex, I thought I should mention before we officially started dating. My ex had called him and warned him of my whorish ways. My boyfriend and I talked, and much to my ex's chagrin we continued dating, until he cheated on me with his now wife. I guess I had that coming. I reacted with indifference. He went about it worse than I did though. He cheated on me about 3 weeks before we broke up, and then he broke up with me. I only found out afterwards. I'm still friends with everyone except my first ex. He still hates my guts. And 5 years later I'm in a very fulfilling and mature relationship. I am happy that I was able to mature and learn from my mistakes and become a better person for it. That is the story of the first and last time I cheated. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video.